November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Development Authority to order. I'd ask for an approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the October 17th EDA minutes.
Approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed. All right, first item of business, we have a presentation from the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. Dan, you want to cue this up?
Yeah, Natalia Bauman is the CEO or the Executive Director, President of the St. Cloud, Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. This is one of two regional economic development organizations we're part of, the Greater MSP. I think they were here last year to present. And it's been a while since we've had the GSDC here, so I thought I'd invite Natalia. She's fairly new yet. I think it's within 2 years, right? So I'll just kick it off right to you.
All right, well, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, yes, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. I'm honored to join you today. As Dan mentioned, I'm Natalia Bowman. I'm the CEO and president of the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. I took this role in July of 2023, so just recently celebrated a year. Depending on who you ask, I'm still fairly new. Some people say that I can't use that excuse anymore. So it just depends on who the audience is. So anyway, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. So I just want to do very high level summary of the GSDC and share a little bit about some new programming, what we've been working on, and what we're hoping to accomplish here in the coming years. All right, so as you likely know, GSDC is a regional nonprofit economic development organization. We serve portions of Benton, Stearns, and Sherburne County. Since I came on board, we've kind of refined some of our target service areas. So right now, for most of our programming, we generally will say about 25 miles around St. Cloud. But if a city or a county reaches out to us in need of some support outside of that, we're happy to provide that support. So we currently have 4 priorities. We work in business vitality, so that is business retention, expansion, attraction, and startups. Talent resourcing, again, focused on recruitment, retention, developing that future talent pipeline, and then promoting the region, which is internal and external communications, really not just to promote our organization, but our businesses, our entrepreneurs, and the region that we service. And then lastly, enhancing quality of life. So this is kind of that economic competitiveness catch-all. So the things like housing, childcare, infrastructure, transportation, those kinds of things that really do help us attract talent, attract business, attract investment, all kind of fall within that particular bucket. We currently have a staff of 4.5. So it's myself, my business development director, Leslie Dingman, who you may already know. Gail Cruikshank is our talent director. Tammy Campion is our part-time communication specialist. And just this year with some of our DEED grant funding, we were able to bring on a new program specialist, and her name is Jenny Weber. We operate under the direction of a very diverse 22-person board of directors that represent academia, manufacturing, education, nonprofit, and recently we just started to undergo our next strategic planning process for 2026 through 2029. So our plan really is to continue with our 4 strategic imperatives, the goals that we've set forth and operated on for the last several years. We'll be doing that through 2025 as we go through this new strategic planning process. But what I'll be really interested in, hopefully there will be time for some questions after I wrap up. But if we don't have time for that, I really just welcome the opportunity to meet with any of you one on one or even in a small group to learn a little bit more about how we can just best serve Sherburne County as we look to inform our next strategic planning process. So as we talk about some of the activity that we are currently engaged in. Please just keep that in mind, and I'll look forward to visiting with you further about this. So since I came on board in the summer of 2023, we have applied for several grants. Some are state funded, some are foundational. So to date, we've secured about $475,000 in new grant money to expand our programmatic activities, specifically geared towards startup and small business ecosystem supports. So with that, we were able to increase our capacity with new staff. I mentioned Jenny. We've also increased our support for childcare initiatives. So we are involved in the RCCIP process with the city of Becker. And then also one with the United Way, which is much more regional. We are partnering with Centricare to co-host a regional housing initiative. I know that housing is something that Sherburne County has been really actively engaged in as well. We've launched a strategic leadership affinity group. That's something that our talent director is very passionate about. It engages a variety of different size employers. It's industry agnostic to really learn what those core HR challenges are in terms of talent attraction and recruitment, and how can we more effectively strategize to solve some of those problems. We have created a much more targeted attraction strategy. So, we're trying to align our efforts with emerging industries like clean tech, med tech, and some of the work that we've done reflects some of that targeted attraction. I won't read through all of these, but one of the ones that I do want to touch on, and I'll share a bit more later, is through one of our deed grants, we launched a new program called Thrive Minnesota, and that is a one-on-one growth strategy program. So very similarly to the Rural Ideas Network that you employ for one-on-one coaching, we have a very similar program, but we have 7 different growth strategists with different areas of expertise that can provide up to 10 hours of one-on-one coaching. We say this is from idea to exit, and our really the core target audience there is existing businesses that are looking to expand. They've been operating for 3 to 5 years, and they're just keep hitting barriers. And so, how can we provide that support to them? What is it that they need? Whether it's capital, whether it's a marketing strategy to enter into a new market. What are those barriers that are currently preventing them from growth? So we provide that. We have resource matchmaking. We've got a resource library as part of that as well. So if they need to check out and utilize a laptop for 10 weeks to go through ILT academy training, they can do that. If they need items for an expo booth to go to Twin City Startup Week, they can utilize that at no cost to them. So those are just a few of the initiatives that we've been working on. So here, just a few of the metrics that we track under business vitality. Again, we focus on business retention and expansion. So far this year, we've really amped up our BR&E game, and we have conducted 90 BR&E visits. Last year, we completed 41, so we're already have surpassed our efforts from last year. And we made sure that we wanted to make sure that we were representing our entire region equitably. So we make sure that we're doing, so many in Sherburne County, so many in Stearns and Benton, and then all of the cities that fall within those boundaries as well. And then we have been actively supporting 8 expansion projects here in our region, and we are actively working on 6 unique attraction prospects right now. Some are green tech, some are med tech, and then some are just general, advanced manufacturing. One of those successful attraction projects is Niron Magnetics. So I'm sure you've heard about this. They are a non-rare earth clean magnet manufacturer. They have a pilot facility in Minneapolis, and the city of Sartell was one of 75 cities that were part of a site selection process. So we partnered with the city of Sartell and are very grateful to have landed them for their very first full-scale production facility that is set to break ground in 2025 and to be fully operational in 2026. Phase one is about $150 million capital expenditure that should create about 175 high paying jobs. So we're very excited to see where that industry takes us. On the other end of business vitality is again that startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem building work. So with the new Thrive program that I mentioned, we launched that in April. To date, we've had 57, or we've supported 57 clients all over the region. Right now it's a 50-50 split. Remember, I mentioned that it's from idea to exit. So we've had about 50-50 of emerging entrepreneurs, and then idea stage, and then also existing and exiting businesses. So, even though we only started that program in April, we've already had some early wins. We've got a few businesses coming to East End in downtown St. Cloud. There's a new operation opening in St. Joe. And then we also host the annual Trailblazer Pitch Competition. That's on behalf of our Hub Lead status with the Launch Minnesota initiative, and our winner was Modern Kind, which I believe is she is from your neck of the woods. So we were very excited for her. She actually went on to place in the Minnesota Cup competition, and she did fairly well. So we're very thrilled to be a very small part of her journey. All right, in talent resourcing, we do a variety of work there. We actually just launched a webinar series to really help elevate workplace culture. We are working with St. Cloud State University to launch an international student employment program to help retain student talent. And of course, there's Epic up there is pictured. Epic is exploring potential interests and careers. This was the 5th year in operation, and I believe we just had 4,200 students over 42 school districts join us just in October. So that continues to perform really well. As far as promoting the region, that's really a mix there. We are kind of trying our hand at a few new strategies. So we're really trying to get out and do some in-person outreach presentations. So far this year, we've presented to 46 unique organizations. We launched a new strategic marketing and communications plan. We filmed a new video. It's a talent attraction campaign, and I'm happy to share that with you all here after this. It's going to be distributed through the Star Tribune. That campaign will be active starting next week, and the goal there is to really target millennials in the Twin Cities metro area to really get them thinking about the greater St. Cloud region as a place for them to start businesses, move for employment, start families. And the premise of that video was to really leverage the unique power of storytelling. Why did the people who are transplants, the people that are locals that have never left, or the people that have rebounded, why did they choose the greater St. Cloud area? And so we tell those stories in a very quick 5-minute documentary styled talent campaign video. So I'll share that with you. And then something that's really exciting, we secured an anchor position in an upcoming TV series that promotes rural communities. So we're not able to share any more about that. The formal announcement comes out in December, so stay tuned for that. But an opportunity for you all would be to think about really empowering stories. Who are some of those individuals in your community that might have a really great story to tell? What places do you have that you would like to showcase that would be really unique to the rest of the country? So we're really looking to showcase parts of all of our region, so including Sherburne County. So if you have any thoughtful ideas, please send them my way. We start pre-production in December, and filming would take place next summer with a winter release, 2025, 2026.
Let's see,
Uh,
over here. Let's pop.
Then as quality of life goes, you know, we hold numerous stakeholder engagement sessions to really strengthen our collaborative partnerships. We are the region's host for the Minnesota Young American Leaders Program. To date, we have hosted 35 really engaging leaders throughout the region. And then we also joined with Greater Minneapolis St. Paul in the Minnesota MedTech 3.0 coalition. We're actively really working toward establishing an incubator, developing healthcare talent, and then working on unique ways to leverage AI for improving health data access. All right, so this is just a really quick rundown of when I first came on board after my first 6 months. These were really the target areas that I wanted to work on or work toward in the first 18 months. Region 7, the Region 7W Economic Development District. You're very well versed in that. Dan was the one that brought this to my attention. And though, you know, we haven't necessarily taken the lead in that, we're incredibly supportive and will continue to do so. So whether it's education, you know, promotion, lead, you know, project lead generation, we are very happy and eager to support our entire region in that effort. Contributing to downtown revitalization and reinvestment, not just in St. Cloud, but all of our downtowns in the entire region that we serve. It's really important to have a vibrant and stable downtown. And then really just kind of cultivating regional collaboration, because collaboration drives innovation, and we need that in order to diversify our regional economy. And then strengthening business retention, expansion, and attraction through something called entrepreneurship-led economic development. That's something that I'm really passionate about, and that's where you would have seen some of the work in the Thrive programming come into play. And then lastly, you know, just really improving our regional competitive advantage by shaping a positive image with shared vision for our entire region. All right. That's really the very quick version of it. Do you have any questions for me or comments?
Any questions?
And Laura and Greta, I know I've seen you at a lot of these events. Do you have anything to add with your role, or?
No, the GSDC does a great job, and we really appreciate being part of that. Brian came this last meeting, and
Yeah,
it was good to have a good group of people.
we end up having a fair bit of overlap with GSDC, so I end up meeting with Gail often at a lot of the different initiatives. She's very involved with the Becker's RCCIP childcare initiative, and so we've had a lot of conversations about childcare. So yeah, I like to joke that kind of sync with some of their calendars sometimes, so it's been really
And it has been great. I'll just say Brian is a very valuable addition to your team. We've really enjoyed working with him, and he seems to be everywhere that we are. So yeah, a lot of overlap. So it's good to have that presence.
I would echo too, GSDC is a great asset in the central Minnesota area. I see Natalia and Gail and I are kind of on a routine communication, and we see each other at lots of events up in St. Cloud, so thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Natalia.
All right, number 5, Sherburne County Housing Study.
Ready, Matt?
I'm ready, yes. It's timing. Good morning, everyone. Let's see if I can get this, all right, it's gonna pop up. It is, all right, technology worked for us, good deal. Well, good morning, great to be here this morning. It's a little chilly out there, huh? So I was look at my calendar this morning and kind of looking back how we got this going, and it seems we have a theme going on here. So I was with you folks last December, the week before Christmas. I was with you in April, the week before Easter, and now we are here the week before Thanksgiving. So I don't know what it is with these meetings, but they're all working out. So good to be here. My name is Matt Mullins. I'm Max of Research with Brian Smith as well. We're kind of piggyback the overview of the presentation and kind of talk about what we accomplished, and then reserve some time for interaction, Q&A, and feedback and whatnot. So kind of kick things off, as I mentioned, we kicked this off back in April of last year. A lot of the work was completed, spring, summer, into the fall months. And then here we are right now to talk about the findings. So that's a quick overview. I'm gonna have Brian talk about some of the demographic drivers and what's happening in the employment market. Those kind of are indicators for where the housing market's gonna go. Then I'm gonna kind of take it back and talk about what's happening in the marketplace for the various 3 sectors. We're talking about the for sale market, the rental market, and the senior housing market. And then from there, we'll kind of talk about where we think things are going, and then reserve the rest of the time for Q&A. So toss it back to Brian here to kick us off on the demographic overview.
Thank you, everyone. This first slide shows how we broke out the submarkets for the county. Last time we included a portion, the entire city of Princeton. This time we just decided to exclude it to give more of a read on the county itself. We did include the southern portion that was inside the county of Sherburne. The following slide, data from the greater MSP, kind of shows you the 15 county kind of greater metro area and kind of the population growth from 2020 to 2035 and where all the counties sit. Sherburne just is outside the top 5, 6th with 17.8% of the growth, so kind of on the top end of projected growth over the next 15 years. This is a history of Sherburne County's population growth from 1900 to projected 2030. And as you can see, you had strong growth from the 1970s through 2010, but the recession in 2010 curtailed growth significantly, decreasing it to about 10%. And it's projected to be about a similar 10% through this decade. This is just a map. It shows you by submarket the overall growth, projected growth in each submarket, with Zimmerman leading the way with 16%, followed by Becker. They're all pretty much similar except for the northern part of the county, with the northwest and northeast submarkets having the least amount of projected growth. And this is the same map, but for household growth. And as you can see, household growth is slightly higher than population growth, kind of indicative of the aging population of the county. That's also, pretty much every community is aging, with the baby boomers growing into their 70s. This graph shows population growth by community for each decade. And as you can see in the 2000s, super strong growth in every submarket, Sherburne County, central Minnesota, but in 2010 to 2020, significant lessening growth, still strong growth, but much less than the 2000s. And on pace again for the kind of similar growth, growing a little bit higher than 2010 to 2020, but not as strong as 2000 to 2010. This is population growth by age group, and as you can see at the top there, the senior populations are really driving the growth in the county. 65 plus is growing by overall 20%, with strong growth in the 75 to 84 projected this decade. Not much growth under age 55, except for the 25 to 34 age group, which is seeing a jump in growth over the decade. This chart graph shows household type in the county, a change from 2010 to 2020. In the 2010s, the leading group was married with children, and by 2020, the married with children declined in every submarket, and the growth was occurring in married without children and those living alone, which again shows you the aging population in the county. So you're having more and more seniors losing a spouse, moving into senior housing, living alone, and then their children moving out of the house and getting their own apartments and homes. Tenure by household size. 54% of all households are in one or two person households. Again, aging population, you're seeing more just elderly population living together or living alone. 44% of renters live alone in the county. It's just kind of a shift in demographics with seniors living alone, but also just individuals living alone is maybe not being able to afford homes. Oops. This is the overall homeownership rate by submarket in the county. And as you can see, it's pretty high homeownership rate across the board, except for the Northwest submarket, which has a pretty high amount of rental in that submarket. Overall, you know, Northeast and Clear Lake have the highest homeownership rate, above 90%. This is a household income by submarket in the county. Overall, household incomes are about 5% higher than the metro area. So you got really high incomes across the board, except for the Northwest market, which with all that rental drops household incomes lower. This graph shows you household incomes by age group for Sherburne County. And you got strong incomes across the board again through the working class, 25 to 64, and then it drops as you age. And obviously those under 25 really haven't hit their main peak earning years yet, so they got low incomes as well. But overall, pretty strong incomes across Sherburne County by age. In terms of employment, Sherburne County is an exporter of workers. As you can see, 41,000 employed people leave the county for work, compared to only 15,000 coming into the county, and 10,000 work and live in the county. The average weekly annual wage for Sherburne County workers is $1,071 per week, and that equates to $55,000 a year. I didn't put it on the chart, but I looked it up before the meeting, and the Twin Cities is 41% higher weekly wage of $1,507. So you can see where Sherburne County sits in terms of in comparison to the Twin Cities metro area. And commuting patterns 40% and a half employed in the county, live in the county, while 20% of employed county residents work within the county. So it just shows you how many people are leaving the county for their employment. Labor force versus employment growth in the county. It was growing steadily up until the COVID pandemic, and you could see where it shows the drop there in employment, 250, 247. It wasn't as significant as other counties we've done studies for, and you guys have pretty much recovered most of that, and you actually have more employed residents now than you did pre-pandemic. The labor force has matched pre-pandemic levels, but you've recovered that in just a couple years. Unemployment in 2023 would drop to 3.2. Pre-pandemic, it was 3.5, so you're actually lower. Some of that's people have left the workforce. As you can see, the labor force has and the employed residents has come closer together. So you're seeing the employed residents versus the labor force come closer, as some people just left the workforce and haven't come back, which is, you can see. Just trying to say that that's one reason that unemployment's down, is just you just see some people leave the workforce and not come back. Give it back to Matt for the market overview and the conclusions.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'll just kind of touch on that as well. So, the labor force numbers have come back to pre-pandemic, which is good, right? I would say in 8 out of 10 kind of outstate markets across the state of Minnesota today, the labor force numbers are still below 2019. That's a problem, right? So it's good to see at least we're back to that pre-pandemic number, because a lot of cities, a lot of counties are in a much worse position with access to labor force. So it's good to see at least we're back to those 2019 numbers. So with that, we're going to kind of shift gears over the market. I'm going to touch on what's happening in the marketplace and kind of give some high-level points here. So big picture, right? Let's look at building permit trends. Things kind of kicked up. A lot of it's been multifamily, and we'll touch on that in a second. But things kicked up in 21, 22, coming out of the pandemic, right? And then, of course, we had these interest rate spikes that kept creeping up and up and up. And you'll see 23 construction came down a lot, and that's happening in 24. It's even down more. And going into 25, it's, we'll see what happens. But as of right now, mortgage rates have been ticking up again. So, we could see another, slower, at least first part of 25 as we kicked off into the new year here. As far as, we're talking rental housing first here. So this graph just kind of shows, the number of units that we inventoried when we called and reached out to all of these, property owners across the county. You see it's kind of bifurcated, kind of the barbell here. You got the Southern Elk River submarket, a lot of rental housing, and then we have the St. Cloud area, and then, not as much in between, right? Especially in the northeast submarket. Again, these are multi-family structures. We're not calling one-off single-family rentals. We're calling, typical buildings of, on average 12 units or more, to get a feel for, what's happened in the rental marketplace. So, not a whole lot in, Clear Lake. Becker's got some, not substantial amount, but really it's the barbell effect for those two areas. Looking at, where we're at today, as we look at, if we combine all the rental units together, so that would be market rate projects, meaning no subsidy, affordable, some kind of income guidelines, and 3, subsidized, typically 30% of your AMI. We inventoried, upwards of 3,900 units across the board, collectively roughly a 3% vacancy rate. So, super low vacancy rate. And it's really close to what it was in 2020. So we've had new product that was delivered since the last study in 2020, but our vacancy rate is still pretty much the same. I mean, it's still hovering at 3%. And in a perfect world, we'd like to see a higher vacancy rate so renters have options. 5%, even 7% would be okay. That gives renters some ability to move, or a new employee comes to town, they find somewhere to live. Super low vacancy rates. You look at where those, again, the last slide showed Elk River leading the case there, but you see where the rates are. The Zimmerman submarket is a little misleading, had a little bit higher vacancy rates, but that's really just due to new product that's been delivered to the marketplace. It's going to lease up, it's going to fill, then those will come down as well. So I mean, for the most part, we got pretty very, very tight market for rentals across the county. As we look at the distribution there of where it was, you see, affordable, subsidized, not surprisingly, 0% and subsidized, 2% affordable. So very, very tight if you're on an income restricted unit. But one point I'll make out is just the overall rents. So look at in red there on top. So 2020, when we did this study, again, that was just kind of during the pandemic era. Your average market rate rent was under $1,000 a month, $1.08 a foot, okay? So that means rent divided by the square footage of a unit, price per foot. Today, that's jumped up to $1,200 per month and about $1.33 a square foot. So that's 30% plus increase in rents, over a handful of years. So pretty substantial increase. And, a variety of reasons, right? We got hit with inflation, right? The maintenance, property, taxes, property insurance has all gone up on buildings. And finally, of course, we have new supply being delivered to the market. The new supply, being new construction, brings up the rents overall as we collectively, analyze these markets. So this kind of shows here, again, you see what's happened in the past few years since the pandemic. You're pushing almost 1,000 new units across the county for new multifamily. So it's good to see. However, there's still a lot more need. We can certainly go higher than that. So, but there has been, a fair amount of new construction has been delivered to the marketplace, which we're happy to see. We're going to transition now to senior housing. So senior housing, we're really just talking about age-restricted products. It could be a 55 plus deal, 62, 65. Every project has different kind of income guidelines, or actually the age guidelines. So we're kind of talking about those service levels in red. So it has to be age restricted. So looking at where, I guess at a high level demographically where we're at and where's the growth. So it's kind of broken down by different age cohorts. Well, you see that 75 to 84 age cohort is growing the fastest. So again, younger seniors, this is a percent change, not a whole number, but percent change. You see that the younger seniors are growing the fastest. That's a lot of the baby boomers, right? The baby boomers are aging, and they're turning. We got baby boomers. They're becoming seniors, and they're turning 75 as well. So wide range there. So a lot of growth across various senior demographics. And the one that really stands out is, Clear Lake and Big Lake, pretty substantial population changes in that senior demographic in the next 5 years. So, so what does that tell us, right? That tells us that, as they want to right size, downsize, we got to start thinking about alternative living options, whether that's, rentals, slab on grade construction. It could be a senior building proper too, but it could be a lot of different things. But the moral is it probably needs to be something at least, one level living and maintenance free. That's going to meet their needs long term. So where are we at in the marketplace today? So it's pretty fascinating to see where we're at today, I think it's a tight market. I'd say tighter than most areas we work in across the state for senior housing right now. So you look at, as you move to the left there, you see that's more active living, independent living product. I mean, basically we're sitting at, 0% vacancy rates for most of this product. And even assisted living memory care is pretty much at equilibrium today. So equilibrium tends to be about roughly 7% for more service-based senior housing, but we're sitting there right now. So the last slide showed you all the growth coming down the pipeline in the next 5 years, and today we're sitting here so that, ding, 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 there's gonna be a ton of senior housing demand coming real soon, and we show that in some subsequent slides coming up. You'll see how high the senior housing need is going to be down the road just due to these demographic changes. So overall, very tight market. I'd say, most markets we work in today, assisted living memory care tend to be double digits yet. They've not recovered from the pandemic. A lot of places are still suffering, 10, 12% vacancy rates still today. But here in Sherburne County, we're sitting pretty tight overall in the senior realm. It kind of shows you where the product is. Again, not surprisingly, back to the barbell effect. Elk River, Northwest, St. Cloud area, kind of driving the boat here as far as where the product is. Nothing in Northeast. But again, Northeast is Sherburne proper, not going into Princeton on the other side of the county line, which you'd find some senior product there. But again, not a whole lot in Clear Lake. Becker's got that one campus on the west side of town off of 10. But again, led by those two submarkets. All right, shifting gears to for sale market. High level, what happens in the Twin Cities pretty much replicated here, right? I mean, the prices are the trends are pretty similar, even though there's a little price difference in there, but now they're pretty much equal, right? So now you've seen that gap has shrunk between the Twin Cities metro area and Sherburne, where we're basically the same price today, where historically there's always been a gap in price, a little more affordability in Sherburne. As we look at what's happened, it's, again, it comes down to interest rates, but, the market plateaued, and with each interest rate hike, and the lack of supply, less and less supply hitting the market, hence less supply means less transaction volume. Hence, we've seen, the volume has gone down substantially from a transaction standpoint. I mean, 2024, kind of throw that out because right now that was not a full year when we pulled this. But you see the pricing stay steady, right? So despite, no supply, higher interest rates, pricing has remained very, very steady and still at a peak today. Looking at price points across the county, Northeast, again, one of the smaller submarkets, but has, more acreage lots, people on, estates and whatnot. So you have the highest price point up in the Northeast, lowest price point in the St. Cloud area, and then Elk River being the, pretty close behind in that Northeast area. But, for the most part, prices are pretty steady across Zimmerman, Big Lake, Becker, Clear Lake. I mean, all those are somewhat consistent price points between those areas. Looking at the growth we've seen, looking back historically, I'm not surprised, it's shot up substantially, right? Looking back to 2015. But since the pandemic, we're up about 42, 44% since the 2019, 2022, or 2020, 19, 20, right around that era. So prices are up, substantially across the board. I mean, every submarket, right? It's gone up quite significantly from a overall price point. Looking at where activity and supply is today, Elk River leading the way there. I mean, not a whole lot of options today, right? For if you want to purchase a home. I mean, yeah, if you want to go to Becker today, even in that northwest submarket, you know, we pulled these listings, nothing out there to purchase. And I would say too that what's happened is we've seen, kind of showing this slide here too, is new construction has been ticked up a lot. So, you know, historically, you know, of all real estate sales, you know, 10, 12% tend to be new construction. You know, it's been kind of the historic norm. You know, the past couple of years, we're seeing 30% north of transaction volume has gone new construction because the builders are delivering product, right? The builders have begun spec, they're still delivering product. And that supply today, a lot of it's being driven by some spec and new construction options, which is driving up the overall price as well. So as you look at that, you know, that graph on the right kind of shows new construction market share. But overall, across the board, you see just how the supply has been pretty much crushed. I mean, we want to be at a 4 to 6 month supply. You know, we're hovering even 2.5 today. So we still are substantially undersupplied in the marketplace, you know, for all those home buyers who need to, you know, put some roots down. This kind of says it all, what's happened recently. You know, we've had some cuts from Jerome Powell and the Fed, you know, 50 basis cut, you know, 25 basis point cut. But just because the Fed cuts doesn't mean the mortgage rates are going down. We've seen them tick up again over the past few months. So they came down earlier this year. We're looking good, feeling better about the marketplace. You know, people feeling more confident, and then you know, rates have ticked up. So you know, the Fed meets again in December. You know, everyone is predicting another 25 basis point cut. However, we may not see that now. You know, inflation numbers ticked up again last week, and there's more probability we may not see a cut in December. So it's kind of to be seen whether that happens. But mortgage rates will go down at 25. But you know, originally we were predicting mortgage rates going down maybe in the high 5s in 25. That, you know, that may not happen now. We may be at a, you know, a low 6s potentially next year. So a lot to be seen there, but you know, that this kind of says it all as we talk about what's holding the market back. We call it the golden handcuffs, right? You know, who wants to give up their sub 3% mortgage rate? And you look at where existing mortgages are today, and you know, a lot of people refinanced, they purchased back in those awesome pandemic times when you could buy 2.75% 30-year fixed, and you see a lot of mortgages are sitting there yet. So that's certainly been, you know, a major impact on, you know, why we have this lack of supply today. Big picture, look at new construction. So again, this is all new construction, whether it be single family, townhomes, twins, whatnot. You know, on average, Sherburne tends to be about 0.25%, you know, less than the metro. However, that gap has been shrinking. If we look back over the past decade, you'll see there's a wider gap, especially go back to pre-Great Financial Crisis, you know, 2009. Back then, that gap was way wider, but it has continued to shrink between the overall trends at Twin Cities and Sherburne. And that kind of shows where you fall against the rest of the metro and other collar counties. So still relatively affordable. You know, Chisago tends to have the lowest prices in the greater Twin Cities metro area. But Chisago also happens to have some of the highest price per foot because they're building on split levels, small lot developments. It's like a North Branch market. So you see kind of where we fall. We're still relatively affordable compared to, you know, the greater metro area, especially compared to, you know, Hennepin County. Ramsey's a little bit misleading there. Ramsey, that was driven by a redevelopment project in St. Paul, the old Ford site, high-end multifamily going there that kind of drove up Ramsey because it's not a whole lot of new construction going on there, but that project brought up the pricing there. But still relatively affordable compared to the metro area. However, that gap, again, shrinking every year. So we looked at the lot inventory, right? How many lots are out there that are vacant? And we consider a vacant lot a shovel-ready lot that has infrastructure in place, right? Curb and gutter, the roads in place, it's been platted, everything's been done. It's a lot ready to go build on right now, today, right? So, we have, about 460 lots that were out there across the county. Again, these are newer subdivisions too, I'll caveat. We're not talking a one-off infill lot, in Becker, right? We're talking a subdivision that's been platted, say, in the last, 15 years. So it's a newer subdivision, right? Elk River has a lot of lots. But as we look at future lots, there are a lot of developments that have, future plan. They may be phase 1 today, but we have control on these lots, and there's no infrastructure in place today, but it's very likely they could move forward. So we had over 1,100 lots that, could relatively quickly come to fruition if a builder developer pulled the trigger and started putting infrastructure in and, made that happen. As we look at, the construction type today, we have seen certainly nationals making their way in. Still have a lot of local regional builders too. I think like LGI Homes, JP Brooks, making their way into these markets. Certainly single family is the preferred type, but we are seeing more and more villas come into play, 55 plus villas, which great product type. People love them, like that villa right there. And so twin homes are coming to play. We're not seeing the, there's a couple out there. We're just not seeing the attached, row home style townhomes, right? They have a little higher density, maybe 8 to 10 units per acre, lower price point. There's a few kind of hanging around out there, but not a whole lot. Most has been a little lower density, villas sitting on a 40 wide lot or a twin home. But overall, when we look at what's marketing today, or recently, you're over that 400,000 price point today, and that 244 per square foot, and that's gone up a lot, right? If we look back to, prior to 2020, most homes are built under $200 a foot. So we've seen that price per foot really jump up, since the pandemic. So what's the pipeline today? As we look across the county, it's kind of summarized just by, by product type, right? Not a whole lot of rentals in the pipeline. Not surprisingly, right? Because of financing costs, lender underwriting today, it's really pulled back the rental market. Not a lot of senior housing in the marketplace today. Same situation, tough to finance. But what is in the pipeline today is single-family lots. Again, these have not moved forward, though. They're somewhere in the planning process. Maybe it's, they got for preliminary approvals, but they're not, ready to break ground. But a lot of single-family hanging around out there for future lots. And we need those lots, right? We'll touch on that. All right, so we talked about the supply side generators and the demand. We talked about the market. Now we're going to talk about, where's the need, where we see things going. So countywide, we see a need for about, 2,100 new for sale options across the county. And that could be a single family house, twin home, townhome, you name it, right? It's kind of broken down by, product type, right? Whether it's, a multi or a single detached. So, not surprisingly, Northeast and Northwest, not a whole lot of activity expected there in that realm. But you look at, certainly it's the southeast part of the county that's driving all of it, right? Elk River, Big Lake, Zimmerman. It's where a lot of that, new construction is going to be allocated to. Look at rental housing. So the last slide showed that St. Cloud, Northwest area, not a whole lot of, for sale options, but flip it around, there is certainly rental options up in that Northwest submarket. So, again, Northeast doesn't really have any land zoned for multifamily, and Clear Lake as well. Just not a whole lot of probably opportunities for density there. But really driven by that Elk River market, St. Cloud area, and I'll caveat this: we did subtract out projects in your pipeline. So if it's pending, approved, or in construction, it got backed out. So these numbers back out that multifamily product that's somewhere in the pipeline, hence, bringing it down, assuming that these other projects move forward. And this is the big one. Again, we talked about all those demographic trends that Brian touched on. Because of the aging of the baby boomers, and we look at how they're going through the system today, it's just skyrocketing senior housing need and other, product types that are coming. And really the peak of the market, so we ran this to 2030. So 2030 is the peak year where people turn 65. So that's kind of like the big one, right? Where this big tsunami is coming. So a lot of this demand is kind of back to the back end, and it's not necessarily today, but each year we get closer to 2030, this senior housing need just escalates and escalates and escalates. So hence we're seeing this substantial need for senior housing over the next 5 years or so. So looking at, where do we go from here, right? So, look at your lot supply. A lot of cities today, not all, but a lot of your cities only have about a 2-year lot supply, meaning shovel ready to go today. Again, there's stuff in the pipeline, but we want a little more options, right? So, at least 3 to 5 years of vacant lots that we want to see. The whole entry level price point thing, demand is there all day. We know it. We could build it all day. But as time keeps going on, it gets tougher and tougher to build anything under 350. Let alone even 400 today is getting tougher and tougher to build. So the sweet spot still tends to be the high 3s to the high 4s is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of submarkets across the county. You kind of see the distribution there. Elk River, could do roughly 500 homes over the next 5 years. Look at multifamily, 500 plus units of need. And a lot of those will be, twins, villas, but we would like to see a little higher density as well, even a quad for that matter. But some row homes, again, higher density, a little more affordable price point, hence popular product that's really needed out there today. Rental, again, we have a need for like 900 plus units across the board. It kind of shows you the breakdown, by each submarket. That again, Elk River and the Northwest St. Cloud area really kind of driving the multifamily need. But, one thing I'll throw out there too is, I'd throw one thing we're not seeing yet is more rental townhomes or single family rentals, and those have good opportunities. Today we are seeing slowly start seeing more and more single family rentals, but it's a hot product type. But even just rental townhomes. You know, it doesn't matter what your household type is, people love rental townhomes. So let's see some more of those as well. Senior, again, we touched on those huge boom coming. Kind of shows you where the need is at. But yeah, so the biggest need is in that really active living component. So market rate rental or owner, you know, that could be again, you know, a senior co-op, a senior condo. It could be just slab on grade construction. With the market rate rental, super high need. The question is, there is overlap right there with traditional markets as well, right? So if you're, you know, looking for an apartment, you know, we see a lot of seniors gravitating to all ages building. So, you know, a lot of that demand could be met as well, just in the overall, just general occupancy product type, you'll see. But, you know, the assisted living tends to be pretty built up. I mean, a lot of product, Elk River proper here, a lot of product, right? You know, memory care is a higher need, but assisted living tends to be pretty built up. But with that, I'll say is this. A lot of assisted living now is getting older. And once a project gets to be over 20 years of age, it probably needs a rental. It needs some love and TLC to bring that up. So there's probably gonna be some opportunity as well in the assisted living market. You know, even though the demand is low, if existing structures are not brought up to today's standards, there could be an opportunity out there, or we just need to focus on some renovations in existing stock. All right, high level takeaways. Number one, you know, as Brian touched on, growth is still relevant, just not as fast as it was, you know, a decade ago. Things turned down a little bit last decade, but we had some strong growth between 2020 and about 22 when mobility rates were high, you know, affordability. You had some growth in the early COVID years, right? Mobility rates have slowed down again with these higher interest rates. Now, we do feel like, you know, people move for, at the end of the day, people move for affordability, right? Affordability, good schools, a little elbow room. But with elevated interest rates, it's just slowed down mobility trends. So we do feel like there's still this huge opportunity here in Sherburne, you know, being I call you ex-urban type, you know, location, kind of right between the metro and St. Cloud. Huge opportunity to continue to capitalize the hybrid work, remote work, all those things, because people want, you know, just more space. They want cheaper housing costs, and that's really driving a lot of it. Again, we have this aging of the population that's going to really open up a lot of new product types. Again, it could be anything. High household incomes, I mean, across the board. High home ownership rates. I mean, 84% is very high. I mean, so we feel like there's certainly this rental housing need. We talk about those low vacancy rates. You know, mass exits, people leaving Sherburne County for work. But you know what? Since the pandemic hit, you know, that used to be kind of a big problem, right? You didn't want to see this mass, that inflow-outflow ratios. But inflow-outflow ratios don't mean the same thing today as it did in 2020. I mean, with more and more people, you know, going to the office less, doing the hybrid thing, it doesn't mean as much as it used to. So I don't think you can put as much weight on it as we did in 2020. So we talk about the rental market again, you know, 3.1%. You need rental housing across the board. Just a lack of product out there. You know, that for sale market is you know, really at peak, lack of supply. You know, one of the things that's really impacting things today is certainly the interest rates, construction costs, but I think the last thing I just will talk about is Well, between property taxes going up, luckily you're not in Hennepin. Like I got my bill last week about had a heart attack, double-digit increases. You should see next door. Oh boy, was it flying? But homeowners insurance has been a major impact on affordability this past 18 months. As we've seen our rates, go up so much. I mean, they claim Minnesota has, high hail damage, which who knows, whatever. But they've gone up a lot, and that's really impacted everyone's mortgage payment at the end of the day. So, all these things, right? Interest rates, mortgage rates, property taxes have impacted affordability. And, looking back to 2020 and where we're at today, really, supply did not keep up with the demand we forecasted in 2020. What I'm saying is that we should have built more product than what we did over the last 4 years. We could have built a lot more product. And a lot of that was a slowdown in 22 with the rate hikes and the financing costs and lender underwriting. But demand did not keep up. Supply did not keep up with supply, is what I'm trying to say. So hence, our demand today is actually higher than it was in 2020 because it's not, been up to par the past couple of years. So now you have kind of this backlog, right, of not enough production happening. All right, we covered a lot of ground. That's the 10,000-foot level analysis. Reports in draft format right now. I haven't finalized it yet. I'd like to, open up the Q&A, questions, comments. Happy to, field any questions you have. So I guess I'll toss it back over to the group here.
All right, fire away.
I have a question.
Sure, yep.
So I presented to the Big Lake EDA just a few nights ago. One of their main questions was on one of the very first population slides.
Yep.
They're asking, how do you project out the population for each submarket? Is it more based on who lives there now or who you expect to be moving into that submarket?
Great question. Population projections. There's a lot to unfold there. A lot of things, right? So yes, it's today, looking at today, right, and the aging metrics that will, as people age, right? So that's, we subscribe to a lot of various software programs, GIS programs that have demographers that project that out, right? So they run their models, and they can project today's population out till, 5 years is good. You get going after more than 5 years, it gets to be tough, right? It gets watered down. You start going over. Overall population is one thing, but predicting by age over the next 5 years, I like to keep it to a 5 year because it gets watered down. But yeah, so you look at that, number one. Number two, what's happening in the local economy, right? Are there job growth, job expansion, is there, retention, or is there a retraction too, right? Gotta look at that. Three, mobility out. We've certainly seen mobility changes to the exurban communities since the pandemic, no question about it. And we foresee that trend continuing, not at the same pace as what we've seen in 20 and 21. So yeah, you kind of juggle it all together, right? But I think, for example, Big Lake, yeah, I mean, they certainly have a potential to capture younger households, young families with kids, especially, right, who want more affordable housing costs and don't want, the grind of the Twin Cities Metro and those housing costs up there. Yeah, so we kind of balance it a lot of different ways, to try to get a somewhat of a forecast. The seniors are easier to estimate than let's say a millennial, because you never, if there are people moving to town or whatnot. But those seniors we can probably forecast easier than the younger demographics. Good question, though. Yes.
When you were talking about the available lots and you were referring to shovel-ready product, we are aware that to get a shovel-ready product in a development requires a lot of investment in infrastructure. And I'm assuming that we're no different than a lot of other communities where that cost is expected to come from the developer to do that. And we're finding that that seems to be a huge barrier to getting those shovel-ready lots available. Are you seeing a trend where there is starting to be some cost participation from the local government entity to help move that available lot?
Yeah, excellent comment, question. No question, right? No question, the infrastructure costs are the number one hindrance, right? To get new lots to the marketplace, right? You know, curb gutter, raw land. I mean, I say 65, 70 grand a lot today just to, you know, bring the market, given all the costs and fees and regulatory, all that kind of good stuff. So it's very, very expensive. Hence, what's happened is you see macro level trends, right? The national publics have the ability to acquire land and hold at a much more realistic pace than, say, a local small builder or even regional can, right? So certainly seeing the nationals and publics continue to gain more and more market share on the land front because they can get pass that down through economies of scale, right? So that's certainly a trend that's been happening, right? But no question that the number one issue is bringing lots to the market, and you know, it's just not a lucrative business for
But I
land
think the
development.
question was, are you seeing participation
Yep,
from municipalities?
Yep, I'm getting there. Yep. Good question. So right now, I would say the participation tends to be, you know, you see some EDAs, HRAs take the lead on a project, and I would say, you know, help front those costs, but it tend to be in pretty rural areas, right? You're not seeing necessarily in an exurban area like Sherburne. You tend to see it more rural Minnesota, you know, western, southern Minnesota, northern Minnesota, where the EDAs would take on that risk and acquire those lots, you know, acquire, build, develop, and sell for 30 grand a lot, and take a loss of potentially, you know, $30,000 per lot loss because they're doing it themselves and they are funding it through the local government. So yes, we do see it, but I don't see it in the exurban communities. I mean, I'm just doing some work in Chisago County recently, you know, right across the border in Hudson. It's pretty much market driven yet, where you're not seeing, you know, subsidy on a lot. Now you will see more subsidies on the multifamily side, but not on the single family side.
Thanks.
Yep.
So on the one slide you had comparing the counties, it showed Sherburne's average cost being relatively competitive, but was also one of the highest cost per square foot. What was driving that? What's driving that?
Yep, great question. So the higher cost per foot is really driven by the product type, right? It's you have a lot of split levels will do that. Your split level houses tend to have a higher per square foot costs because of, you know, half a basement. So you see a lot of those split levels have a $250 per square foot cost, and your slab on grade villas. Your slab on grade villas, ramblers tend to be higher as well. So that's driving up your overall per square foot costs. Now your traditional 2 stories, which you see, let's go to Maple Grove or Rogers, right? Those have a lower per square foot cost because they spread those, you know, HVAC runs, plumbing runs, or whatnot across. But it's really based on product type. Product type will drive that.
I would just have a quick follow-up. Our board asked some questions last time, so circling back to some of our questions from last time. Someone had asked what the population of people that are working 100% remote from home, do we have those numbers? We kind of went back and forth in Maxfield. Looks like we can pull that as a statewide number, but it's really hard to drill down per county. I think that's kind of what we were.
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball to know what that is. But yeah, we have yet to find a source that we can get, drill down to local level geography. Those high level stats out there on commuting trends and hybrid work and remote work and, those things at a more macro level, but to drill down to a local level, unfortunately, there's just no good source out there that really is able to track that. And the wild card too is just, when you have a household with a, say, married couple, one's going to St. Cloud, one's going to Twin Cities, right? You get all those, muddy areas too. So it's just a very, very challenging thing to figure out. I mean, I wish we could, because it'd be fascinating to see, those commuting trends. But unfortunately, we just don't have the data sets are just not out there to glean some info into. Yes.
Have you accounted for the impacts of the surrounding counties? I mean, you're talking about western Sherburne County, which is eastern St. Cloud, and that has a big impact. But you're also talking in the Elk River market, the impact of Otsego and Wright County, which we know is really fast growing. So do your numbers mitigate some of those outside influences, or are you looking at Sherburne County as kind of a silo all by itself?
Good question. Yeah, I think, as some of those graphs show, you've certainly seen the population growth occurring, right, in the southeast part of the county, in that, Elk River, Zimmerman, again, transportation corridors. So we certainly see those pockets and the growth. It's easier to relocate, right, to those closer areas of the county. So yeah, we certainly have, kind of to some extent, we see those areas as high growth areas. But I guess, certainly I think the biggest issue, think about Wright County. I think people probably cross shop you with Wright County. If you're looking to relocate, it's got to be a huge one. And Wright County's got, pretty favorable tax rates and, good schools as well. So I think that's probably your most relevant area that people cross shop you. But you're right, Wright County's growing fast, right? You look at St. Michael, Albertville area, wow, right? I mean, just booming. No, my kids play sports. I'm always going there, and it's like, wow, right? So where are all these people coming from? But I think that's probably your biggest, I'd say, competitor, right? Would be that Wright County area. And, I look at St. Cloud area too, a lot of that growth in St. Cloud, it's not going to Sherburne, right? It's going north. Yep, Stearns or north, White Park or Sartell, Sauk Rapids. There's just not a whole lot of growth on that east side of St. Cloud. We don't see that as a big factor. But I do feel like you do have lower housing costs than some of that Wright County boom, right? So then the question is, can you capitalize on, providing more affordable housing than what's down the road in Wright County? A good opportunity is there. And people will drive. People will drive. If I get a house for $50,000 less,
By crossing the river.
yeah, people will do it. No question.
Sure. Because I was also looking at some of the demand for even of those senior products, if they're being filled just across the river or just across the highway. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, I think that senior housing, again, when we calculate demand, it's, to the county level, right? We're not accounting for
That's kind of what I was asking.
Right, yeah, so the question is this, right? So if you got a project right across the river, and it's, St. Cloud, for example. St. Cloud's got a ton of senior housing, for example, right? So I'm sure St. Cloud is pulling in Sherburne County residents to a lot of their product. Whereas, the flip of it is, can Elk River pull in product from somewhere else too, right? Most senior projects, given the product, right, 30% plus of your residents are not from the area, because it's the children, the grandkids, right, that's driving that mobility. But that's a great point. I think senior housing gets a lot tricky because if you have a lot of senior housing product across the county line, it's easy to cross-shop that as well.
Right, and
Yep.
seniors often aren't as concerned with school districts, right? So
Exactly.
they're not gonna make their decision like, oh, I have to be in this school district.
Yeah. Okay, we gotta move this along, so
Yes.
Dan's got a couple of points here to make, and
One of the things we asked Matt to look into was permit and second whack fees between cities. He did put that data into the report. We put it as just city one, city two. We didn't pick on any cities, but we do have one city that's substantially higher on the second whack fees. So I'll probably reach out to them to just give them a heads up, but I wanted you to know that data was in the report because that was something we asked for. And then you mentioned Wright County has some good tax rates for property taxes. Otsego is one of the lower taxing rates in the area. However, they are building a fire station and building up a fire department right now, so we might see that kind of more equalized with what some of the Sherburne County cities are at. And then we just wanted to see, is there anything else that's missing from the study that you didn't hear about today? Because this, like Matt said, it's just a draft. We can still add more data, but we wanted to make sure that you had a chance to react to what you saw today.
When you talk about Otsego, they don't have like the infrastructure that most cities have. A lot of it, it really isn't, my awareness, a water and sewer to the extent of some of the other cities.
The demands have grown,
Yeah.
and I'm
So
assuming.
they're starting to move that direction, which means costs will go up.
so is there anything lacking in the report that we should do further research on before the final draft, or are we good with just touching on this one and calling it a day?
Is there any way to get an idea of if there was available housing for the senior market that you are referring to, what that could potentially free up from where they're living now and put that out onto the market for, housing sale opportunities?
Great comment. I don't know if there's a hard number that you can say, but generally speaking, when you build even a villa for that matter, right? You're leaving your single family home, or if you're on the farm or wherever you're at, right? You're selling that property and you're moving it, frees up housing stock. Right now, it's fascinating to see. The latest reports came out last week on generational trends. I mean, well, number one, it's sad to see the first-time home buyer numbers are really bad right now, right? Because interest rates and whatnot. But the baby boom generation is like the number one buyer today of homes. The 55-plus demographic is buying a lot of them. They're buying these villas and twins and whatnot. But yes, it does free up housing stock for someone else to come in and certainly purchase. And we do have some mobility rate sales, high-level stuff, but it's hard to get a real concrete number on that. But I would say 9 out of 10 times it does free up, a young buyer to come in and purchase that home.
I'm assuming our life cycle numbers are unhealthy right now, because you are supposed to be.
Yeah, so the average age of a first-time home buyer now is 38. It's gone up a lot.
So, one thing I think would be helpful to have in an appendix would maybe just be a breakout specifically on back to my question, what is driving the high cost per square foot for Sherburne County versus the lower price? That could be in an appendix somewhere,
Sure.
whether it's the mix or whatever.
Yeah, okay,
That's
that's
fine.
fine, yeah, we can.
A little detail on that would be helpful.
Certainly, yep, we can address that, yep.
All right, Dan, what's next?
Chrissy, can you bring up the ordinance? Next, we'll be bringing the Housing Trust Fund to the county board to approve. It'll have very broad guidelines that'll allow this group to determine what that fund should be used for. There's a balance of about $300,000 that'll be available to start. So that'll probably be a deeper dive in December of what we want that to look like. The ordinance will probably go to the county board in January. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, this will be the deciding body of what that program looks like, and it'll approve a lot of the program specifics. So if somebody wants a loan under 50,000, this group will have the authority to do that. Anything over 50 would have to go to the county board for final approval. Obviously, I need the board to agree to that, but that's how it's set up right now.
I thought it looked good too, so.
So we will bring this back in December. We maybe have somebody from the state kind of guide us through what other counties are using it for, and then we can have a deeper conversation about what ours would look like.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See ya, take care.
All right, you got anything else, Dan? I can kick it to Brian.
Brian's got 5 whole minutes to give us full
I
update.
can do 5 minutes for an update, that works out. Yeah, we'll just kind of hit the high levels. We can do the next slide here. Oh, yeah, there we go. Here. Again, try to break it down based on our strategic goals. So business retention expansion, finally starting to get some BRNE visits in. Actually, that should just say 5, so we were able to do 5 in the last month. A lot of these are spurred from the Chambers of Commerce, really putting it out to them first to grow some of these. But we're also able to do a lot of visits with the childcare centers throughout the county, which has been really nice too. Big thing with the centers is not being able to get that workforce. So that's still jumping over to childcare. And then also, there's a grant opportunity that I'm tag teaming with public health on for good food. It's through the Department of Ag, but it's to help with infrastructure costs and refrigerator costs for convenience stores, grocery stores, and farmers markets to be able to have more fresh, healthy food. So that's kind of a tag team effort with public health. On the workforce side, we had a lot in October with the manufacturing, so the cool jobs tours with Amy Lord of the ISD 728 School District. Trying to do a lot of volunteering with the high schools because that's going to, that is our workforce. So I actually have a high school student that's going to be job shadowing me next month. So we'll run them through a lot of different businesses and keep them interested. Working with Tim Zaboy from the Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Center to really get ingratiated into the CMMA so we can start meeting with and doing BRNE visits with the larger manufacturers are here in town, in the county. And City of Becker is moving forward with their Just Transition funds to look into a business incubator. So we did have a roundtable about a business incubator in the City of Becker and what that could look like. It was really early stages, but so I had some good conversations come out of that. On the housing side, obviously, the big push is the housing study, starting to present the initial findings out to the city's EDAs and HRAs. That's all been going well. Some really good questions that have come out of that they partly addressed here, which I'll circle back with some of those boards on. We'll be presenting to the rest of the cities in December and January. I already have that on the schedule. Housing Trust Fund, obviously, and really getting the word out to the local banks about that we are looking to do this Housing Trust Fund, and as they talk to builders and developers, knowing that that's a conversation we want to have too on the housing side. Childcare, again, still pushing really hard on that. We did get to submit a proposal for the Minnesota Deed Child Care Economic Development Grant. They say that they will let everyone know by the end of October here who actually earned that. That grant proposal, that was the one at the very last 5 minutes of the last meeting you approved putting together some sort of proposal. We really based ours off in other counties and really narrowed it down to just hiring and retention bonuses for childcare centers, and also trying to help with Milestones' substitute roster pool for childcare. So if approved, that's the focus of that grant proposal. We, again, did some BRNE visits with different childcare centers. They would like to grow and expand, but the workforce side, they're really limited. they hire people, they quit in 2 days, or they get hired then at Target and make more money. So continuing to work through that problem with our childcare providers. Marketing, that's kind of the catch-all, but meeting with all of our chambers of commerce continually here, becoming some of those ambassadors, so welcoming some of our new businesses into the county. We are trying to really push the business lab. So that business lab offering that we have through Rural Ideas Network. We did get 3 different individuals to go through the one-on-one consulting with the business lab in the last month. So 3 is up from 0, so we're happy with that number. But if we can keep getting more people through that business lab, that online consultations. So I'm really trying to push that wherever I go to. And then just pushing into Q4, continuing to do more BRNU visits, finishing presenting that housing study to all of the local city EDAs, and finishing up with the end of year reporting that's needed for the revolving loan fund and the abatement reporting. And then looking into that SherburneBusiness.com website that we have and figuring out what we want to do with that, if we want to continue with Switchboard, what some of those options are in the future. So some future discussions there. And I think that's 9:30. So.
All right, great.
Quick question, Brian, or a comment, I guess. I was talking to someone yesterday that is obviously working, him and his wife, they have children. And I was floored by the number that he put out, because childcare came up. They spent $32,000 for a year for childcare. And I just was like.
Do you know how many kids they have?
I think he said that was 3, 2 or 3. And I was just like, oh my God, what kind of a job do you have to have to be able to afford childcare?
County Commissioner.
No. That wouldn't even cover it.
All right, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second. All in favor?
aye.
Good meeting, thanks. Brian.